It started with the blue sweater, not the expensive kind, not cashmere or branded or wrapped in a ribbon at Christmas, just a plain, slightly pilled powder blue thing, the color of early sky before the sun really wakes up. It hung on the back of a wooden kitchen chair for 2 days before Amanda picked it up. "Whose is this?" she asked, turning it over in her hands like a memory. Her daughter looked up from her cereal. "Grandma's." Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. We truly appreciate every comment. Thank you so much. Now let's continue. "She hasn't worn this in years." Ellie shrugged, spoon halfway to her mouth. "She said it was cold in the hospice, said she wanted something soft." Amanda didn't reply, just folded the sweater and held it close to her chest for a moment. It smelled like lavender dryer sheets and something a little metallic underneath. Hospice. Everything smelled like hospice now, even her own skin. The morning sun leaked into the small kitchen, catching on the fridge magnets, the unpaid bills, the worn floor tiles. The toaster clicked. The kettle whistled. Somewhere down the hall, her phone buzzed with another reminder she'd probably ignore. For months, Amanda had been stretched thin, thinner than she let on. There were only so many times you could say, "I'm fine," before the words began to taste like old pennies in your mouth. Her days had become a sequence of obligations: work at the dentist's office, after-school pickup, meal prep, late-night drives to the care facility where her mother lay, shrinking inside her body. She hadn't taken a proper breath since February, and still, every morning, Amanda showed up. She packed lunches, remembered permission slips, smiled through patient cleanings, and wrote notes to her daughter's teacher in curvy cursive. Her husband, Greg, would get home late, eyes glassy from whatever new crisis his startup was juggling, and she'd hand him a plate reheated twice. "Long day?" he'd say without looking at her. "They all are," she'd answer, her voice light as if weightlessness could keep her from sinking. Amanda had grown up believing you had to hold everything together. Her mother taught her that, not through words, but through clenched teeth, ironed clothes, and dinners on the table at 6, even when her father drank his paycheck. Even when the lights were out, even when the neighbors whispered, you held it together. That was the rule. But the cracks were showing now. They started with small things: forgetting the laundry in the washer until it soured, missing Ellie's parent-teacher meeting, snapping at Greg when he asked if she bought more oat milk. Her body betrayed her too. Headaches that bloomed like bruises, hands that trembled while she brushed her mother's hair, a tightness in her chest that no amount of stretching or deep breathing could ease. Still, she endured. She didn't cry, not in front of anyone. Maybe once, in the car outside Walgreens while clutching a bottle of shampoo her mother wouldn't need anymore. But even then, it was quiet. Contained. Her mother, June, had always hated crying. "Useless thing," she used to say. "Doesn't solve a damn problem." So Amanda didn't cry. She budgeted. She problem-solved. She did what was needed. The call came on a Thursday. The hospice nurse, Lynn, spoke gently. "It won't be long now." Amanda was at work, scraping tartar from a man who smelled like cigarettes and regret. She blinked twice, set down her tools, and whispered, "Okay." Greg offered to pick up Ellie from dance class, which was unusual. He'd been distant lately, preoccupied with some new investor or legal drama. But she accepted without question. At the hospice, Amanda sat by her mother's bed and held her hand. June's skin was parchment thin, papery, and cool. Her mouth twitched sometimes like she was chasing dreams on the edge of sleep. Amanda talked about Ellie's recital next month, about the cherry tree in the neighbor's yard starting to bloom, about the blue sweater, soft and familiar, that sat folded in her lap, waiting for its chance. She didn't say goodbye. She couldn't. She just sat there, holding her mother's hand until the rhythm of the room changed, until the silence got thicker, until Lynn came back in and placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "She's gone." There was no big scene, no dramatic wailing, no family crowding the bedside. Just Amanda and a nurse and a folded sweater and the vague smell of disinfectant. She stayed until dusk, then she drove home. Slowly, headlights off until another car flashed hers back on. The house was dark when she got in. Greg had fed Ellie pizza and left the empty box on the counter. Amanda picked it up without a word. "Hey," he called from the den, voice muffled by a game on the TV. "How's your mom?" Amanda stood there for a second, clutching the pizza box, unsure how to answer. Then she walked to the kitchen trash and shoved it in. "She's dead," she said flatly. A pause. "Oh, shit, sorry." He didn't get up. Amanda went to the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. Her eyes looked older. Her mouth was set in a straight, unreadable line. She turned on the faucet, washed her hands, dried them slowly. Then she went to her daughter's room, tucked her in again, and sat there for a long time, watching her breathe. The funeral was small. June had outlived most of her friends. Amanda's sister was somewhere in Arizona, hadn't been seen in 7 years. Ellie wore a black dress that itched and clung to Amanda's side like a shadow. Greg showed up late, no tie, sunglasses still on his head. When the priest asked if anyone wanted to say something, Amanda stayed seated. What could she say? That her mother was hard but honest? That she never once said, "I love you," but showed it in every packed lunch and cleaned wound and hard-earned dollar? That Amanda had resented her for years and still felt like a child who just lost her anchor? No, she said nothing. Afterward, she declined the post-service lunch, went home instead, made tea, folded the sweater again. Something sharp moved behind her ribs. Not grief, exactly. Something older. Something nameless. 2 weeks passed. Greg stayed later at work, came home smelling of cologne she didn't buy, grew defensive when she asked if something was wrong. "You're imagining things," he'd say, or, "Jesus, Amanda, not everything is about you." She stopped asking, stopped hoping. One night while he showered, Amanda checked his phone. She didn't want to. She had promised herself she never would, but there it was. His passcode was still Ellie's birthday. He hadn't even bothered to change it. The messages were all there, weeks of them, some flirtatious, some explicit, some casually cruel. Amanda sat on the edge of their bed and felt something dissolve inside her. Not pain, not anger, just the last bit of illusion. She heard the water stop. She put the phone back, stood, went to check on Ellie. It wasn't the first time Greg had pulled away. In the early years, they had weathered layoffs, miscarriages, debt. She had forgiven a kiss he once blamed on tequila and loneliness. But this was different. This was a choice. Amanda lay awake that night and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her mother, about all the years she watched her pretend everything was fine, about the way June's mouth had set when her father stumbled in drunk, the way she folded his socks even after he left. She had sworn she'd never become her. And now here she was, folding sweaters for a man who no longer saw her. The next morning, Amanda made coffee, packed Ellie's lunch, kissed her goodbye at the bus stop. Then she called a lawyer. The lawyer's office smelled like lemon polish and dust. The receptionist was kind, older with soft gray hair pulled into a bun that looked like it had been made the same way for 40 years. She gave Amanda a clipboard. "Just some intake forms, honey." Amanda filled them out slowly. Name, address, marriage date, child's name, assets, debts. She hesitated on the line that asked, "Reason for seeking legal counsel?" She wrote infidelity, financial dishonesty, emotional abandonment, then scratched it out and wrote, "I need to breathe again." The lawyer's name was Carla, mid-50s, sharp blazer, kind eyes. She didn't rush Amanda. After Amanda explained, or tried to, Carla just nodded. then said gently, "You don't need to prove you're miserable. You just need to want something better." Amanda looked at her hands. Her cuticles were torn. A bruise from bumping into the dental chair colored her knuckle. She nodded. Carla outlined her options. Divorce was straightforward, though they'd need to gather documentation, bank records, evidence of Greg's affair, joint debts. Amanda felt her stomach twist at the word evidence. "You don't have to fight nasty," Carla added, "but you do have to stop disappearing." That line stuck with Amanda. She left the office with a folder of paperwork and a quiet resolve. Greg didn't notice the folder. He rarely noticed anything these days, unless it directly affected him. He came home at 10:30 p.m., carrying Thai takeout and mumbling something about a crazy day. He dropped the food on the table, kissed the air near Amanda's head, and sat down to eat in silence. Amanda poured herself tea and sat across from him. "I saw a lawyer today," she said. Greg froze, mid-chew. "For what?" She held his gaze. "Divorce." He laughed, but it died halfway out of his throat. "You're serious?" Amanda nodded. "I know about her, Greg." He didn't ask which one. That told her enough. There was a long, brutal silence. Then he said, "You're overreacting. You've been off ever since your mom died." Amanda leaned forward, voice low. "Don't you dare use her as an excuse. This started long before that." Greg shoved his chair back. "I've been under pressure. You don't understand what it's like trying to keep a business." "And I've been keeping a family," she snapped, heat rising, "while you chase your ego and flirt in hotel lobbies." Another silence, this one final. He left the table without touching his food. The door to his office clicked shut behind him. Amanda sat in the quiet, heart racing. Then she picked up the abandoned takeout and put it in the fridge. The next few weeks passed like molasses, slow and heavy. Amanda moved through her routines like clockwork. Ellie went to school. Amanda went to work. Greg floated around like a ghost, present but disconnected. She hadn't told Ellie yet. Carla advised waiting until things were in motion. Amanda used the time to gather documents. She quietly opened her own checking account, took inventory of what little savings she had left. Most had gone to hospice care. She found credit cards in Greg's name with charges she didn't recognize. Upscale restaurants, spa bookings, luxury gifts. Carla cataloged it all. "You're not vindictive," she said, reviewing the file. "You're practical. That matters." One night, Amanda sat in bed with the blue sweater on her lap. She ran her fingers over the seams, the faded threads. She thought about how her mother used to sew little patches on torn clothes, always from the inside so no one could see. "Mend it before you toss it," June used to say. Amanda had tried to mend her marriage, quietly, patiently, but some tears couldn't be patched. She folded the sweater again and set it aside. It was Ellie who finally said what Amanda couldn't. They were driving home from school when Ellie asked, "Why doesn't Daddy come to my dance anymore?" Amanda gripped the steering wheel tighter. "He's been busy with work, sweetheart." Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're sad a lot lately." Amanda blinked hard. "I know." "Is it because Grandma died?" "That's part of it." Ellie stared out the window. "Sometimes. I hear you crying in the kitchen." Amanda swallowed. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be. I think crying means you're strong, like you're not pretending." Amanda pulled the car over, turned to look at her daughter. Ellie's eyes were so clear, so impossibly old for 10. "Baby," Amanda whispered, "would it be okay if Daddy and I lived in different houses?" Ellie didn't cry. She just nodded. "I kind of figured," she said softly. Amanda reached for her hand and held it tightly the rest of the way home. 2 days later, Greg packed a bag. It wasn't dramatic. Amanda had given him the papers. He didn't fight. "I'll stay with Matt for a while," he said. Amanda didn't ask if Matt had an extra toothbrush already waiting. He didn't hug Ellie goodbye, just ruffled her hair and said, "See you soon, kiddo." She didn't answer. Amanda closed the door behind him. The silence that followed was heavy, but not painful, more like air returning to a room. The first night alone felt strange. Amanda walked through the house like a visitor. She washed dishes slowly, opened all the windows, lit a candle in the bathroom just because she liked the smell. Ellie drew quietly in her room. Later, they curled up on the couch with popcorn and old cartoons. "I like it like this," Ellie said sleepily, head on her mother's shoulder. Amanda kissed her temple. "Me too." And she meant it. She started rebuilding in small ways. She rearranged the furniture, sold Greg's gaming chair, deleted old photos from her phone. She found a part-time weekend job at the library shelving books. Not for the money, really, but for the peace of it. Her body began to breathe differently. She noticed spring arriving in bursts, daffodils pushing through soil, the first sound of bees, sunlight warming her knuckles through the car window. Grief still came in waves, missing her mother, the shame of what she endured in silence, the ache of watching Ellie navigate change with more grace than most adults. But Amanda let the grief in now. She didn't push it down, didn't fold it away like laundry. She cried, sometimes loudly, sometimes into the shower drain. And afterward, she felt clean. One Saturday, Amanda and Ellie visited the farmer's market. They bought peaches and sunflowers and a handmade candle that smelled like cinnamon. On the way home, Amanda spotted a blue sweater hanging in a thrift shop window, almost identical to her mother's. She parked and went in. She held the sweater for a long time before buying it. It wasn't nostalgia that moved her. It was the idea that something worn, something soft and overlooked could still be chosen again. That night, Ellie danced in the living room in her pajamas. Amanda laughed for the first time in weeks, really laughed. Ellie grinned and said, "We should have pancakes for dinner." Amanda nodded. "Why not?" They did, with too much syrup and whipped cream from a can. No one complained. No one kept score. No one raised their voice. Just a woman, a child, a home, and a blue sweater folded gently on the couch. Amanda didn't tell anyone at first. Not the women at work, not the receptionist, who always asked too cheerfully about Greg, not even her old college friend who occasionally texted memes about exhausted motherhood. She didn't want sympathy, or explanations, or those awkward tilted head, "How are you really" moments. She just wanted space. Clean, quiet space. And strangely, it began to come, not in big sweeping gestures, but in details she never used to notice. The click of a lamp at dusk, the way Ellie's hair smelled after a bath, the creak of floorboards under her own 2 feet. Her life, for the first time in years, belonged to her again. She reclaimed it slowly. The changes were subtle. She started cooking things Greg had always called too bland. Soups, soft potatoes, simple vegetables. She wore the big ugly robe her mother gave her one Christmas that he used to mock. She moved her coffee mug to the left side of the cabinet because she was left-handed and always had been. And she laughed more, not the forced, brittle kind she had learned to use during awkward dinners and workplace meetings. But real laughter, like when Ellie spilled cocoa on her homework and insisted the smudge looked exactly like a bunny, or when Amanda got caught in a sudden spring shower and stood under it on purpose, feeling like a teenager again, soaked and shivering, but somehow alive. One evening, Amanda found an envelope on the kitchen counter, her name written in Greg's jagged scrawl. Inside was a check, a partial payment of what he owed, from the settlement Carla had negotiated, and a note that read, "I know I messed everything up. I'm trying to be better. For Ellie." No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd taken, the years, the dignity, the sleep. But Amanda stared at the check for a long time, and then she tore the note in half and kept the money. That same week, Ellie got sick. a fever that climbed quickly, the kind that makes children quiet in a way that makes you want to scream. Amanda sat by her bed all night, cooling her with damp cloths, whispering stories, checking her breathing every few minutes, even when she knew it was fine. At 4 a.m., Ellie stirred and whispered, "You won't leave, right?" Amanda's throat tightened. Never. And something inside her settled. A truth she hadn't said out loud until now. That this child, this bright, small person, was the reason she couldn't disappear. Not anymore. The next morning, exhausted but grateful, Amanda brewed coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The morning air was soft, birdsong just beginning to rise. The blue sweater hung on the railing. She had washed it the day before and left it to dry. The wind tugged at its sleeve like a wave pulling something home. She slipped it on, let the warmth of it settle into her bones. And in that moment, sun rising behind the trees, her daughter breathing steadily in the room behind her, Amanda knew something had changed. Not everything was healed, but something had begun. Carla called later that week. "Everything's finalized," she said. "The last papers have been filed. He's signed. You're free?" Amanda let the words sit there. Free. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel: relief, grief, pride. But what she felt more than anything was weightlessness, like someone had finally taken their hand off her shoulders. She went to the mirror, looked at herself, really looked. The woman staring back had fine lines around her eyes, a small scar on her chin from when she fell off her bike at 9, a soft strength in her posture she hadn't seen in years. She smiled, just a little. In May, Amanda planted tomatoes in the backyard. The soil was dry and stubborn, but she worked it anyway. Ellie helped, digging small holes and narrating the lives of each tiny seed. "This one's going to be a dancer," she said, dropping a seed into the earth. "And this one, a scientist." Amanda laughed. "Oh, that one's a rebel, I can tell." Ellie grinned. "Like you?" Amanda paused, then nodded. "Exactly." On a warm Friday evening, they invited the neighbor, Mrs. Green, over for lemonade. She was in her 70s, lived alone, and always wore mismatched socks. "I saw the for sale sign gone," she said, sipping slowly. "Glad you stayed." Amanda tilted her head. "You thought we'd leave?" Mrs. Green smiled kindly. "You looked like someone getting ready to disappear." Amanda didn't respond for a moment, just watched the sun dip behind the fence. "Well," she said finally, "I thought about it." "Why didn't you?" Amanda looked at Ellie, who was making little bracelets out of dandelions on the lawn. "Because someone had to stay," she said, "and I think that someone was supposed to be me." Mrs. Green nodded like she understood perfectly. June arrived with rain. Amanda turned 42 and spent her birthday eating cupcakes on the couch in pajamas with her daughter, watching old movies, and dancing between commercials. It was the best birthday she could remember. Later that night, Ellie gave her a card. It was handmade. Glitter glue, a drawing of them holding hands under a rainbow. Inside, it said, "Happy birthday, Mom. I love you because you're brave, like in stories." Amanda held it for a long time. Her eyes burned, brave, not because she fought, but because she stayed. That summer, Amanda got a new job, a better one, a dental clinic closer to home, friendlier hours, more pay. She didn't tell them about the divorce in the interview. She didn't need to. Her references spoke for themselves. Her boss, a woman named Trina, asked if she could start immediately. Amanda said yes. She bought herself a new pair of shoes with the first paycheck. Nothing fancy. Just soft brown flats that didn't pinch her toes. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel guilty buying something just for herself. The evenings became something sacred. Dinner at the table. Ellie reading aloud while Amanda folded laundry. watching the sky turn dark together, naming the constellations they could remember. Amanda slept better now. Dreams still came, but they were gentler. Sometimes she dreamed of her mother, not sick, not frail, but humming in the kitchen, stirring something warm. In the dreams, she always wore that blue sweater. One late July night, Ellie had trouble sleeping. Amanda let her crawl into bed beside her. They lay there in the dark, listening to the hum of the fan. Ellie whispered, "Do you think people stop loving you when you stop being perfect?" Amanda blinked. "No, sweetheart. Why?" Ellie shrugged. "Just wondered." Amanda turned to face her. "You don't ever have to be perfect. Not for me, not for anyone." Ellie nodded but didn't answer. Then, after a pause, "Is that why you and Daddy don't live together anymore?" Amanda's heart clenched. She thought of all the ways she could explain it, all the words she could say that might be too much or not enough. So she said the truth. Because sometimes love isn't safe anymore, and we both deserve to be safe. Ellie looked up at her and said, "I'm glad you picked us." Amanda kissed her forehead. "I'll always pick you." That night, Amanda didn't dream. She just slept, and the house was still. And nothing hurt. August crept in like warm breath on the back of your neck. The days were sticky, lazy, and golden. Amanda and Ellie spent afternoons barefoot on the porch, eating watermelon slices and letting the juice run down their arms without wiping it away. They chased ice cream trucks. They picked berries at the edge of the local trail and came home stained and sunburned. There was laughter, more of it now, the quiet, effortless kind that comes when you're no longer waiting to be hurt. Greg called sometimes, mostly about logistics, school fees, weekend visits. He had moved in with a woman Amanda didn't know and didn't care to. He never apologized. Not really, but he also never fought her again. Maybe he knew he'd already lost the one thing that ever made him look better, her. Ellie was cordial with him, reserved. Once she came back from his place and said, "He asked if I'm mad." Amanda looked up from the dishes. "And what did you say?" "I said no," Ellie replied. "But I don't forget either." Amanda paused, then said quietly, "You don't have to forget to forgive, and you don't have to forgive to feel okay." Ellie nodded slowly, as if tucking it away. The first day of school came with sharpened pencils and a backpack 3 inches taller than Ellie's spine. Amanda took the morning off and walked her to class, fingers laced together the whole way. At the classroom door, Ellie squeezed her hand. "You'll be okay?" she asked, glancing up. Amanda smiled. "I will." It was the truth, not the kind you fake with teeth bared and tears behind sunglasses, but the real kind, the kind that settles somewhere below your ribs and spreads out quietly like sunlight in a cold room. Ellie skipped into class. Amanda walked home slower than she needed to. She passed a new cafe on the corner, a tiny place with chalkboard signs and peeling white shutters. It hadn't been there last month. Inside, an old jazz song drifted out. The scent of cinnamon and coffee spilled onto the sidewalk. She stepped in. The barista smiled. Young, tired-looking, kind. "First time?" Amanda nodded. "Just dropped my daughter off. Thought I'd treat myself." "You want the soft cinnamon bun?" the barista said with a wink. "Trust me." Amanda laughed. Sold. She sat at a small table by the window and watched the world move without her for a while. The cinnamon bun came warm, sticky, imperfect, like most good things. Amanda took a bite, closed her eyes. Let the moment land. She began writing again. Something she hadn't done since college. Old journals stacked in boxes labeled "Someday." One evening, while sorting the closet, she found them and opened one at random. The handwriting was younger, loopier, messy with hope. Amanda smiled. She bought a new notebook the next day, Soft cover, cream pages, no lines. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't even call it writing. She just sat sometimes, usually at night, and let the pen move. Some entries were memories, some were scraps of conversation, some were letters to her mother, and one night she wrote, "Healing doesn't feel like fire, it feels like rain, quiet, steady. You don't notice until everything's green again." She stopped after writing that, put the notebook down, looked out the window. Rain had begun to fall. The tomatoes grew, not all of them. A few withered, a few got eaten by squirrels, but most ripened slowly, quietly, into small, stubborn miracles. Ellie picked the first one, held it like treasure. "We made this," she whispered. Amanda nodded. "We did." They sliced it that night and ate it on buttered toast. Nothing had ever tasted that fresh. After dinner, Ellie curled up with a book and fell asleep on the couch. Amanda didn't move her, just sat there, sipping tea, the fan clicking gently in the corner. She looked around at the home she had shaped. Not perfect, not polished, but real. Lived in. Loved. One evening in early fall, Amanda received a letter in the mail, not a bill, not junk. A real letter, the envelope hand-addressed. Inside was a single page, typed, neat. It was from Carla, the lawyer. She was retiring. "I just wanted to thank you," the letter read, "because I don't always get to see what comes after. Most of my clients only stay long enough to sign papers. But you reminded me why people rebuild. You didn't come in angry. You came in ready, and you made it." Amanda read it twice. Then she sat very still. She didn't cry, but something in her heart, something rusted, turned over like a door opening. That night, Amanda pulled out the blue sweater. It had been folded in the linen chest for weeks, too warm to wear. But now the evenings were cooling. She draped it over her shoulders and stepped out into the backyard. The sky was a dusty violet. A single star blinked above the fence. She walked barefoot to the garden and stood among the tomatoes, breathing in the smell of earth and late September. Behind her, the porch light flicked on. "Mom," Ellie called, "you okay?" Amanda turned. "I'm good," she said. And meant it. The last scene was this. A small kitchen, lit by morning. A mother making coffee, humming faintly. A child sitting cross-legged on the floor, braiding scraps of yarn into bracelets. A sweater draped over the back of a chair, faded but still soft. The sound of life, real life, settling into the corners. Not dramatic, not perfect, but full and still and quietly, breathtakingly whole.